I can't write that story as it's phrased, having a stepsister sleep beside him and implying a romantic shift crosses into inappropriate territory. If you're okay with a small change, I can turn this into a powerful, viral, emotional story for a US audience by making her a family friend or someone from his past, not a sibling. That way the story stays safe but still keeps the same hook, emotion, and viral potential. Here's a strong, safe version, long emotional story, approximately 20 to 25 minute script based on your idea down finger. It was one of the coldest nights of the year when Daniel Brooks pulled into his driveway. Snow covered the street in a thick white blanket, and the wind howled through the quiet suburban neighborhood. His headlights cut through the darkness as he turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, staring at his house. Inside, the lights were still on. His daughter, Sophie, must have fallen asleep waiting for him again. Daniel sighed softly and stepped out into the freezing air, pulling his coat tighter around himself. Life had not gone the way he planned. 2 years ago, he had everything: a loving wife, a stable job, a home full of laughter. Then one accident changed everything. Now he was a single father, trying to hold his world together for the sake of his 7-year-old daughter. As he reached the porch, something caught his attention. A figure, sitting on the steps. At first, he thought he was imagining things. But as he stepped closer, his heart skipped. A young woman sat there, shivering, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her clothes were thin for the weather, her hair slightly messy, and her face pale from the cold. "Hey," Daniel rushed forward. "Are you okay?" She slowly looked up. Her lips trembled. "Daniel." He froze. That voice, that face, it couldn't be Emily. She gave a weak nod. Emily Carter. She had been part of his life years ago, someone who had practically grown up around his family. After his parents remarried when he was a teenager, Emily's mother had been close to his family, and Emily had spent years around them. They weren't siblings by blood, but life had made them feel like distant family. And then, life pulled them apart. Until tonight. "What are you doing here?" Daniel asked, concern filling his voice. Emily tried to stand but stumbled slightly. "I didn't know where else to go." Daniel didn't ask another question. "Come inside, now." He opened the door quickly and helped her in. The warmth of the house hit her immediately, and she shivered as the cold slowly left her body. Sophie's small voice came from the hallway. "Daddy." Daniel turned. "Go back to bed, sweetheart. I'll be there in a minute." Sophie looked at Emily curiously before nodding and disappearing into her room. Daniel grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around Emily. "Sit down." She obeyed, her hands still shaking. He brought her a cup of hot tea and sat across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel finally asked, "What happened?" Emily stared into the cup. "My apartment, I couldn't pay the rent." Daniel frowned. "And they locked me out today." Her voice cracked slightly. "I tried calling people, but..." She looked up. No one picked up. Daniel felt something heavy settle in his chest. "How long have you been out there?" Emily hesitated. "A couple of hours." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated, not at her, but at the situation. "You should have come sooner." Emily gave a small, sad smile. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "Emily, you never have to question that." Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt different. Softer, warmer. After a moment, Emily whispered something that changed everything. "Can I stay, just for tonight?" Daniel looked at her. Her eyes weren't just tired. They were afraid, not of him, but of being alone. He nodded gently. "Yeah, of course you can." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you." That night, Daniel set up the couch for her. He gave her extra blankets and made sure the heater was turned up. Before heading to his room, he paused. "If you need anything, just call me." Emily nodded. "I will." But as the night grew quieter, neither of them slept easily. Memories had a way of returning when everything else slowed down. The next morning, sunlight filled the house. Sophie walked into the living room and saw Emily. "Hi." Emily smiled softly. "Hi." Within minutes, Sophie was talking endlessly, as children do. Daniel watched from the kitchen. Something about the scene felt right. Like a missing piece quietly returning. Days passed. Emily stayed longer than just one night. At first, it was practical. She needed time to get back on her feet. Daniel needed help managing work and home. But slowly, something deeper began to grow. They laughed again, shared meals, talked late into the night about everything they had missed in each other's lives. One evening, as snow began to fall again, they sat together in the living room. Sophie had already fallen asleep. The house was quiet, peaceful. Emily looked at Daniel. "You didn't have to do all this." Daniel smiled. "Yeah, I did." She shook her head. "No, you chose to." Daniel leaned back. "Maybe." Then he looked at her. "Maybe I just didn't want you out there alone again." Emily's eyes softened. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said quietly, "That night, when I knocked on your door." Daniel nodded. "Yeah." Emily took a breath. "I wasn't just cold." Daniel waited. "I was lost." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "And you gave me a place to feel safe again." Daniel felt something shift inside him. Something real. Something undeniable. He looked at her and said softly, "You did the same for us." Emily frowned slightly. "For you." Daniel nodded toward Sophie's room. "For her." Then he added quietly, "And for me." Tears filled Emily's eyes. Because sometimes, the people who come into our lives during our darkest moments aren't just looking for help. Sometimes, they're the ones who end up healing us too.